notice requirement of the Open Public Safety Act has been satisfied with respect to this meeting. Specifically, the time, date, and location were included in a notice posted on our official website as per PL 2025 C, Chapter 72, and posted on the bulletin board of the Administration Building. Additionally, to the extent known in accordance with the Open Public Safety Act, the agenda for this meeting and whether formal action will be taken was posted in the Administration Building as per PL 25, Section 72, was also posted on the official borough website. Clerk, please take the roll.
Sorry about that, Mayor. Mayor Giordano.
I'm here.
Mr. Brennick.
Yes.
Mr. Martinello.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. Ms. Wingate. Here.
Everyone kindly rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence for all wounded veterans, all veterans across our country who have given the ultimate sacrifice to serve our country so that we can remain free and live in a society as we are living now. Would the clerk please do a prayer?
Dear Lord, grant us your guidance and wisdom. Let this meeting be conducive to unity and fairness. May our actions reflect our agenda that assists our borough's needs, not our personal goals and needs. In his name, amen.
Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out to this meeting. At this time, anybody from the public who would like to comment, you could come to the microphone. Just give us your name for the record. Seeing none, we will begin with our unfinished business, the 2026 municipal budget discussion.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, and good morning to the council for coming out this morning to discuss our 2026 operating budget. I'm joined here by Colleen Ennis, the borough CFO. We're here available to go through the operating budget after review from our office and presenting it to the council this morning for any questions and for your review. Councilman Martinello will assist in moving the conversation along as well as our council president and the chair of our financial committee. There are multiple handouts that you have in front of you that we'll be reviewing this morning. We might be jumping around a little bit, but feel free to ask questions. Some of the handouts look very similar, but they're different in their numbers. Okay. So just want to give you a preliminary starting point so that everyone understands how this process works behind the scenes and then how it gets to this point. Our 2025 operating budget as adopted is our starting point for 2026. The review of that budget was conducted by myself, by Colleen, and Kelly, our clerk. In going through the budget line by line, all 307 pages of it, we begin to look at what costs we know at this time have been already presented to the borough for 2026 numbers. We plug those numbers in. We then take a look at how we landed line by line in each account. Did we have a shortfall? Did we budget just right? And did we have some fluff? Never fluff. Did we have some extra just in case? So we take a look at all of that. It happens over the course of a few weeks, and we pay really close attention line by line, department by department on these numbers. So what we present to our auditor so that he can present back what the options are for the council in any given year is based off of our review. One of the first things I'll point you to in connection to that is the 2026 budget appropriations. It's a two-sided page, appropriations on one side, on both sides. It looks like this. So there's 3 columns on there. For the 2025, what was salary and wages, what our other expenses were line by line, the total for 25, and then what our proposed budget is for 2026. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the variance. So if we went up or down, it's clearly stated there. All the way on the left-hand side, you'll see the department. So we can start to go through there. If you'd like, Councilman Martinello, is this where you'd like to start?
I just want to, for other members of the council, as we look at the 2025 appropriations compared to 2026, you'll see there's not much difference in the lines. The biggest one that you'll have is, our anticipated increase on police salaries for our new contract that's in negotiation with them right now. That's the biggest increase, and the other one is the health line, which is kind of baked in because it's broken up by department, right? Is there not a specific line that you can point to, but overall, the health insurance has gone up a lot.
There is actually one line.
Which one is it?
It's,
Which line are you looking at for that?
it's labeled group, employee group health.
I got it. Yep. So
That's the 226,616,
226.
Councilman.
So I was looking at the salary and wages side of it.
Yep.
So the other expense, we call it separately. So those two lines, they account for $570,000 of our $766,000 increase from 26 over 25. So not a lot of wiggle room on any of the other lines because there just isn't that many increases that we put in. Any other lines that had any favorability last year, we already took those out. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Tatiana, do you want to add anything about any specific line on here?
So a little bit more on the background. This document is after we do tweaks after meeting with our auditor. And so what happens is we submit our recommendations. He submits back to us and lets us know where we are on two on two important points: our cap, and then our appropriations cap and our tax levy cap. So before we ever get to a number to present to the council, we have to look at whether or not we're over our caps. And in our preliminary numbers, we were over the appropriation cap and we were over the tax levy cap. So we did have to go back to our working document to look at what we could take out to get us to be compliant with both of those caps. In doing that, we removed a line item in the amount of $192,000. And that was able to get us to be compliant under the appropriation cap, as well as the tax levy cap. We tweaked some other items with the auditor to make sure that, we were fully compliant. So there was initially $192,000 in appropriations above what you see here on your chart that you're reviewing. That's been eliminated rather. So in order to be compliant, that's what we needed to do. And the other, and if you want to take a look at what that means exactly, you'll have two sheets in front of you titled 2026 Budget Appropriations Overview. They look like this. They look like the same sheet, but there are different numbers on them, two-sided. If you look on the back side, you'll see the analysis of the 2026 tax levy cap on top, and then the analysis of the appropriation caps at the bottom there. So I will note that before the removal of that $192,000, the tax levy increase started at 12%. 12% is not doable because we were over the caps, and that those two handouts that you have in front of you give you two options for the council to consider regarding the tax levy increase for 2026.
Yeah, so we had the auditor go back and run numbers based upon what would be the max we could increase taxes to get to the number we need to. That was at 10%, because like Tatiana said, their original numbers when they came back, the math came out to 12%, which is not doable at all. So when they went back and ran the numbers, we did it at 10%, which only had us cut one line. If we want to get even lower, down to 7%, we would have to go find other places to cut more dollars out of this budget. So the thing to keep in mind for all of us that we've been talking about the last several meetings when we're talking about the budget process is this also already accounts for using surplus. How do you generate more surplus is kind of the education we went through a few days ago or a few weeks ago. When you have a budget, if you don't spend that whole budget, you have excess. That's surplus. So the more we cut budget lines, the closer we get to that budget every year, you generate less surplus. So that's kind of what we've been doing over the past few years. If we do that again, we're only going to make the surplus problem even worse. And any lines else that we would want to cut on here, we're talking about services and we're talking about people. So that's kind of the danger zone that I don't want to go to. I know none of us really want to go down that road.
Right. And if you look at, there's another 4-page handout that you have in front of you. It's the 2026 comparative schedule of tax rates. At the bottom, it talks about your fund balance use for the borough's use starting in 2021 through 2025. You'll see that in 2023, we had a turning point when we're looking at the usage of our surplus. In general, the borough is consistently regenerating about 1.4, 1.5 yearly, but our usage of the surplus has increased. At the end of 2025, we were at 2.5 million. If the borough were to take no action and not do anything for 2026, we can anticipate that we would use an additional 2.5 million in 2026. And if you look at page 3, under the appropriation increase at the top, you'll see the introduced budget versus what we have this year. So the total increase we're talking about is $687,911 on the appropriation side, and as the councilman noted before, about $500,000 of that is just between two lines. So the increase is extremely minimal on appropriations. We have multiple lines where the borough has no negotiating power or very limited negotiating power. So there are bills that we receive every year that the borough just must pay, whether it be Social Security to the state, whether it's our health insurance costs to cover our employees, whether it's the bill that we have for the sewer authority. Our utilities are not necessarily in question. Those, continue to increase, same as you're noticing at home with all your utility costs. So the point here is that increase is substantially is flat, and that's where you find yourself today, and where the discussion leads on where the borough wants to be in 2026 to address the costs that have continued to go up that we really have little control over.
And I just want to add one thing on the health insurance line. We talk about the increased cost to the borough in terms of supporting those costs from the state. The other issue is that our employees are also getting increased rates. They also bear a portion of those increases. Just like any of us in our jobs, our health insurance goes up every year. Our borough employees' health insurance is going up potentially at a higher rate than wages. So that means our employees bring home less pay than they did the prior year. In an inflationary economy, that's tough, for folks. So we have to remember that if we said, okay, the town has to bear more of the cost of health insurance, that means pushing that cost to our employees, which is not workable for many of the people that work for us, and not something I want to do either. So.
And in that regard, Councilman, the council has been very helpful in trying to minimize that cost increase, not only to the borough, but to its employees. This is year 2 of the council approving an incentive program for any employee who has gone over to an HD plan. It is a savings right off the top to the borough, and then there is a savings, although, minimizing a 34% increase in 1 year is difficult, there is some opportunity. We took that program very seriously. We held meetings with the employees and a lot of one-on-one meetings to get employees to be comfortable to make that change. Happy to say that last year, we only had 2 employees who changed over, Colleen and I. we lead by example, and this year we got that number up to 21. So we hope that in this year's conversations, if the state doesn't come through with any other support or relief for health insurance, that we continue to have those conversations with all our employees and continue to get that number up. So that's something that the council has done in trying to anticipate these increases. We are told that in '27, the increase is potentially 50%. So, we won't know that for a while, but that's what we're looking at in terms of healthcare.
Tatiana, I have a question.
Sure.
The $192,000 that was cut, where did that come from? Was it a certain item?
It's a terminal leave line that we have. So in preparing for, other scenarios or situations that might come up, we'd like to put it there to prepare ourselves for anything related potentially to wages or, folks who are retiring or leaving. They're all protected. The amount won't affect anybody who would be retiring, but it is a bit of a self-insurance policy to have it there. And what does that mean if we don't have it? Potentially in '26, we might have to do a special emergency and kick a portion of that amount or whatever amount would be needed to the '27 budget. So we like to prep ahead of time and like to limit any emergencies that we put through.
Thank you.
And just remember that 190 got us from 12 down to 10.
And compliant with our caps, which was, the number one, the first step. But yes, it did reduce us from 12% to 10%. Something to keep in mind, our budget is small. Anything about 200 or 500,000 in either direction is impactful in our budget. And we start to really scrape the barrel if we're going below that. And it doesn't put the borough in a position that, we're prepared for what could come in that particular year.
I think the next thing, Tatiana, I'd like to talk about a little bit, and you'll jump in after I started, is from the auditor giving us two different proposals at 10 and 7. What are the differences that we have to do to get to 7 if 10 is an unpalatable number for the council? The first
Sure.
thing is 10% assumes surplus anticipated of 2.22 million or 2.25 million. At 7%, we're using 2.5 million, which is the same number we used last year. So,
Right, your
10%
biggest,
gets us
right,
to use a little bit less surplus
correct.
next year. 7%, we still have to use the same thing we used this year. When we looked at this year's numbers, 2.5, we regenerated 1.6 million in revenue. So we lost 900,000 in surplus this year. So if we stay on that same path, where we anticipate regenerating 1.6, and we use 2.5 again, we lose another $1 million off of our surplus.
And Councilman, there's charts in front of everyone on the large sheets, and that gives you a scenario with some assumptions at the top, but fact-based assumptions based on appropriation increases every year, and what that looks like if you lock into a 4% tax increase every year versus a 10%, and the direct effect on your surplus. And the auditors made it clear that they want the mayor and council to understand that we are at a point in our budget that this surplus amount and usage needs to be understood very clearly by the council, and what steps can be taken to minimize usage of surplus, just given the trajectory that we're on right now. If you have any questions on that spreadsheet, I know Mike can answer anything specific to that sheet if you want to take a few minutes to just take a look at it, if you want to give him some more background.
Yeah, could I just, maybe just to provide like a 30,000 foot background here. So the budget, the operating budget has 3 structural kind of components, right? So the first component is how much do we spend as a borough, our appropriations, right? I think Joe and Tatiana did a really nice job explaining that a lot of the expenses that are going up are out of our control, right? It's insurance. Unfortunately, we have to negotiate a new contract with the police, so those expenses go up. But I think as a borough, what you see when you look at this, we cut wherever we can every year, and we keep what's in our control flat, if not negative, but the costs just keep going up. So how much do we spend? Then how much do we bring in, right? We bring in money through taxes, and we bring in money through fees and construction fees and grants. And right now, there's a $2.5 million gap between what we spend and what we bring in. Okay, so we offset that by using our surplus. And we have a $6.5 million balance in our surplus right now. And at the rate that we're going, I think by 2031, we'll be out of money. We'll be out of surplus. And that gap will still exist. So our auditor is now telling us this is serious. And if we don't increase taxes by 10%, and just to give you a benchmark, I think last year was 3 or 4. The year before was 1. So 10% is pretty unprecedented. If we don't increase taxes 10%, we're really in rough shape. It's going to accelerate the drawdown of that surplus. So so the model here shows that with 4% increases, which is what we've been doing the last year or two, with 4% increases, we would draw down surplus to basically less than 0 by 2030. But if we increase taxes 10% every year for the next 6 years, we'll be okay. That's what the two models tell us.
Yeah, and I don't even know on the math what we're allowed in tax increases, even if 10% a year is even allowed.
So
by our
again,
cap
it depends
bank,
on the
which we're
caps.
using. Yeah,
Right,
cap banks change
right.
every year. So that's just a projection as to what. And Mike is being kind of conservative with a 3% increase on cost.
Yeah.
Because it could be more based upon what we get from the state.
This year is a 6% increase in costs, so this financial model assumes a 3%, which would mean we would also, in addition, we would also have to make some decisions on that. So.
Yes, in both of the scenarios being presented to the council, we are using cap banks. And when you use your cap banks and you don't regenerate them as quickly as we used to, that's a component to getting to the number that we need to be at this year. And so there are a bunch of different buckets and some tools that can help us. This year, we're using every tool essentially available to the borough to help us get to that 10%. And then potentially the 7%, depending on, it really comes down to usage of surplus. That's your big difference between the 10% and the 7%. And just keeping in mind that the leaner the appropriations are, and we were lean last year, this year even more so, we will very likely have very little to put back into surplus at the end of the usage of that budget. And so, that's something that we've, it's working against us, I'll put it to you that way.
A couple other notes. So one, just so everybody doesn't point to what's happening in Walden. This is happening all over Bergen County. Small towns everywhere. Some towns are luckier that they have more ratables or they have more commercial properties that they can offset some of their things. Think Paramus, think Mawa, they have a lot more commercial properties. Other towns out there are in the same boat. You're seeing in the news items about Board of Educations in towns like Montclair, Hohoke is right around the corner, who are having special elections to increase their appropriations for those specific reasons. And they're all noting the same thing, healthcare. So we're not unique in that. Second question I have is more for Tatiana.
Sure.
If we told you as a council, we don't want to do 10%, we want to do 7%, and that means you need to cut another $250,000 out of our budget, somewhere around there, correct?
Yes, and I just don't know that we can do that without them looking at, without cuts in potential services, in employees. We would have to start to look at those avenues. That's the reality of where we are right now.
I don't think that there's any way to cut from this budget without cutting services.
That's correct.
Is unfortunately where we're at.
We do not want to cut employees.
No?
I think it's already bare bones as far as employees are concerned.
It is, and for us to get you below that level would be fiscally irresponsible of us. We would put you and the borough in a position that emergencies could potentially come up. We had one in '25 that got kicked to '26. Just keep in mind, every emergency that you put on is just how you start next year's budget process, and so you're already right off the top looking at potentially high numbers. We don't have a crystal ball. I wish we did, but we really do not feel comfortable cutting this without any other, bigger decisions to be made by the council in terms of services. This is the number where we feel most comfortable.
As Joe said before, I just came back from a mayor's meeting, and all the mayors in this area, they were all talking about how they are running their town this year bare bones. Every mayor and council has the same decision they have to make like we are, and every town is bare bones.
And we are being told that the state of New Jersey, presumably, our state aid will be flat. We get about 2.4 million. 2.4 million from the state of New Jersey, but as we go into this process, we are always hoping that the state comes through and they give us relief. Very, very minimal relief this year, and good that they're not cutting the state aid, but no increase on that end.
Yep, and I know a lot of folks will come up and ask questions, what about grants, and what about those things? So those grants that we apply for, which we just did, 1.5 million, those grants that we apply for, those are for specific uses that we have to do. So we want to do work on the sewer system, we want to do work on the water system. We can go and look for grants like that. There are other small grants you can get for fire protection things that we do every year. We go out and get those. There's not a grant that can come in and say, pay for your employees. That doesn't exist, right? So you have to pay for your employees through town revenue.
Right.
And those grants also require a match.
Matching funds.
Right, and you bring up a really good point. Most grants are related, or many of them are related to capital projects. So here, today we're not talking about capital, we already spoke about capital, but the capital projects, and this year, the borough will be going out to bond, probably in October. And when we start that process, they're going to take a look very closely at what our surplus is, and our bond rating could potentially be affected. The borough has generally tried to stay flat in the bonds, so as we drop bonds off and we pick up new ones, the increase to the residents is fairly flat. With the increase to capital projects, that could potentially change going down the road, and so the impact to the residents could be, additional payments to pay down those bonds and to essentially afford those projects. And so, capital projects are necessary for the improvement of the borough and the maintenance of the borough, but it does engage the borough in very high costs, potentially, matching funds, soft costs associated with those projects, and that number is important, and it will be realized by residents at some point. So that presentation from the auditor will come to the council at some point this year, but that is something, as we're looking at this budget, that was considered as well. We have $188,000 from our debt service that we were hoping to include in our operating budget. And in trying to stay under the cap, instead of the $188,000 towards the pay down, we decided to pay $100,000, and $88,000 would shift to next year's budget. So it's all related, and it does affect the number that the residents are seeing.
Can I ask
Yeah,
a
and
question?
just to add on capital, council members, you'll remember a few weeks ago, we proposed a capital budget of around 1.9 million for this year. A portion of that we have to pay as down payment, which counts towards this year's budget. And given that level of spend, 1.9 million, and going out to bond, our auditor is also suggesting that we reduce further the capital expenditure to, one, lighten the amount of down payment that you have, and also reduce the amount that you have to go out and bond for every year, every 5 years. So you're bonding every 5 years. If you keep your capital budget around 1.1, you're bonding 5 million. If you have budget around 2 million, now you're bonding 10 million. So that affects the rate that you're going to get on the bond and how much interest you're paying. Just like any of us on our credit cards, better credit score you have, the lower your interest rate. So those are things that he's highlighting now for us as a council to look at too.
Yes, thank you.
Tatiana?
Yes,
I have another question.
sure.
We're not talking about the capital budget, but I think there is some confusion about a possibility of a purchase of a new fire truck, not the one that's going to be coming at the end of December, which under my understanding was already appropriated 3 years ago.
Correct. There are no, there's no plan in the capital budget for 2026, 26 or 27 at this point for a new fire truck.
The one you're talking about, that was already purchased.
That was purchased 3 years ago.
Correct.
A couple of years ago, but with delivery, we didn't receive delivery.
Absolutely.
But that has nothing to do with this.
Yes,
Mhm.
just trying to clear that up,
Yeah.
because there's definitely, just for the public, there's confusion about that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Just want to make that clear.
Councilman Brennan can tell us all about how long it takes to build a fire truck.
Exactly, right. I took just to prepare this one.
So where are we? As a council, we'll be ready to introduce a budget in a couple weeks at our council meeting. The thing that we need to know from the council is what direction that we want to go. Do we want to look at, and I'm going to head off a question in a couple seconds here, right? We have to look at right now what we need to do for 2026. Do we need to do, 10%? Do you want to do 7%? Find more money to cut out of the budget? That is what we have to do for this year. Long-term planning, we need to start really looking at as a council. Sure, we've already approved one development. That's going to take time before we see any money from that. It's going to take 2 or 3 years before we see anything. What other things do we have? We talked about water. We talked about services. We start looking at other ways to save money on those, but those are going to take time. We can't look at garbage contract for 2 years. There's only a few other large items in our budget. So I think all of us know we have to do some responsible development in town to bring in more revenue, but that's going to take time to get to. And these numbers are hard to look at. 10% is hard to look at. You have to remember, though, 10%, you look at your total tax bill. You pay $17,000 in taxes. We're not talking about 10% on that. We're talking about 10% on the municipal budget portion. So,
Correct.
Tatiana or Colleen, can you give the council members and folks here in the audience, what does a 10% tax increase mean to the residents based upon an average home value from our last assessment of $562,000?
So yes, $566,000 is the average, and I believe we were looking at about $25 per average household
Per month?
for the year.
$25 is $250.
I'm sorry, 280 for the year, correct. 280 for the year, and then broken down by month. But again, 566,000 for the,
So do some
For the
math.
average.
You have a larger home, your home averaging around $700,000, whatnot. You're probably looking at, $400 a year in tax increases from
On the borough side.
So 10%, again, not to make the public go crazy, I think I'm going to get another $2,000 on my tax bill. That's not that, right? 10% budget increase of our piece of the budget. Remember, there are 3 components of that full percentage. Our component is one piece. The school piece is a larger piece, 70%, and then you have the county tax as well. So our piece of the tax increase is that 10%, which is somewhere between $250 and $400, depending on your home. Then we will get the other piece from the Board of Education, and we'll get the other piece from the county, which will be your full tax increase.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Regarding that separation?
Sure.
Right now, from the taxes that are kind of the average tax that comes in on a property here in Waldwick, how much above that tax levy average would we, if we increase 10%, would be the difference, like, per year? Would you know?
per resident?
$280.
Right, that's what Joe's talking about.
Above, because normally our taxes go up, what would be the average, would you say, on an average resident?
Right, so with the proposed increase, you're looking at about $280 for the year.
Yeah, so last year we did 3.2% tax increase, I think it was. So that was probably somewhere around $100 for the year.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right, so now this year, if we did 10, you're talking about 250 to 400, so it's probably, it's more than double the increase from last year.
Okay.
On our piece.
It'll probably be like $33 a month.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that perspective, and you're looking at it from an inflation perspective, how much more do you pay for food at the grocery store this year than you did, 10 years ago? That's kind of one way to look at it. It's not a lot for keeping the services that we have in town. Everyone has to remember, these services are public safety first, for the most part, right? Police, fire, these are things that we need to keep our residents safe. These are things that our DPW guys do every day to go out and plow the roads and fix water pipes, things that, we get complaints, sure, but think of, we had less money to spend on those things. How bad would it be then? We do the best we can with what we have, and I think our guys do a really good job of it, especially, our police, our DPW guys, they work very hard for this town. A lot of them live here, so tax increase will impact them too. But we need those guys to be here and do the job that they do for us, and we need to provide them the correct equipment. We need to provide them the right support from the town to do their jobs effectively. And I would never risk public safety over $30 a month.
I completely support that.
So I have a hard time decoupling the near term from the long term. That's my only hiccup here, right? Because if what we're proposing today is, it stinks, but fine, if we have to do it for 1 year, it is what it is. But by doing this, we don't change anything next year. We change nothing. We're like literally sitting here 1 year from now having the same conversation, and eventually we're going to run out of room to tax. The law is going to step in and say you can't tax 10%.
Is it not on?
So I'm glad the auditor is now saying we have a problem. I'm not so sure I'm willing to take their guidance on what to do, because for the last 2 years they missed this. So I think we need to be, as a council, thoughtful about how we're going to make sure next year we're okay, but 5 years from now, this is not something that we need to continue bringing up. I am of the opinion that I don't want to cut any services in town. For the same reason everybody just said, I don't want to cut services, I don't want to cut any, we're already bare bones. So the question becomes, how do we do this without taxation? And there are different runways to do that. But I would advocate not putting that conversation off until tomorrow or next month or next quarter. I would advocate that it becomes a comprehensive package that we start discussing now that's added to the taxation. Because I would really like to balance this budget so that we don't have this gap and we don't have this issue. And when we do raise taxes, it's so that we can reinvest in the town, not to basically tread water, which is what we're doing right now. So yeah, that is kind of where I'm coming from, and I just don't know how to do that. I think that has to come from you, Tatiana, kind of bringing us proposals on how it is that the town can do this without taxation for the next 6 or 7 years. I mean, just to give you we're saying it's only going to go up $280 this year, but if we do this for the next 6 years, which is what it's going to take to balance the budget, we will be doubling the tax. We will be doubling what we're currently paying in taxes right now, because you add 10% on a growing number. So if I pay $4,000 a year to the borough right now, that's about right. I'm going to be paying roughly double that in 6 years. Right? So
Yeah.
Just a correction, when I said the 280, that actually was our original amount based on the 12%, so it's slightly under 250.
Yeah, that's why I was calling.
increasing 10% for 6 years doubles the original number roughly. That's just all I'm trying to say. So.
Yep. I think there's one thing that we all talked about a little bit last year as a council, and I think we have the financial advisors coming up. There's a lot of moving pieces to this, but the water system is an asset to us. we have to seriously consider that. You know, we look at that as an asset to sell to get us out of this, but that is intertwined with a lot of parts of our budget. So we need a lot of financial analysis. Now, Mike, you're very good at that, but we already hired the financial advisors to look at this. Phoenix, I guess it is.
Right, they're engaged.
We really need that information because.
And part of our operating budget that we're looking at this morning is supported by our water budget. So, salaries in particular are split, not evenly, but there are some, a percentage of the wages that the water salary absorbs in terms of all employees throughout the borough. So we are utilizing it to help with the operating budget as well, to the maximum that we can.
Now, and the other thing, just also educating, right? If you're looking at the papers that we have here that Tatiana handed out on the big pieces of paper, you look for large numbers in my business, right? We have a library tax of $750,000 a year that we pay for the library. Great program at the library. I don't want to lose that. It's a lot of money. So when auditors start looking at your pieces of the pie, where are your pieces of pie to look at? So we want to keep things like that in town. We have to find ways to support that with revenue. The pool is another one. The pool, we operate at a loss every year. Operate at a loss. Keep that in mind when we talk about services.
Yeah.
And when we debate here raising fees on our residents, $5 to pay for the pool, and we hear we can't do that, we're going to make people angry. We operate at a loss. You know, chlorine goes up every year. We pay people to be lifeguards there. We pay people to run the pool. That cost goes up. Do we look at other options there, privatization or whatnot? These are a couple of levers that we have to pull. We don't have a lot of them, but we have to look at pulling them.
Yeah, I also agree with what was been said before. We're patching now, and we're going to get through the upcoming year, but to think that we're going to be able to do this for the next foreseeable future is the wrong thing to do. We do have to take a look at other avenues of revenue. We talked about services. I remember years ago, and it was just an idea that we were going to cut garbage pickup to 1 day a week from 2. They were coming at us with pitchforks. So I understand that you can't cut services that you need for the town. But by the same token, if we're all going to live here, we gotta bear the burden of the reality of taxes and how much things cost. But I'm wondering, now I understand that there are certain things, there's certain line items here that we can't control, insurance being one of them. As I'm looking at here, I see some really high numbers. But, and just thinking outside the box, if you will, first of all, the 10% I don't want to do, but it's reality and we have to do it, in my opinion, right now. Moving forward, I see a lot of line items here, and I'm wondering if perhaps instead of looking at, there was a line item that was taken out, if I recall correctly. What would happen if we just decided to save 1% of every line item and deduct 1%?
So I can touch on that. So when we look at how we're going to start this year in 26, we take a look at what costs were known to us in 25, and we make adjustments in those conversations, and we meet with every department individually. That's really step one. So where were your funds allocated? What do you need for next year? What do you not need for next year? And you'll see if you go through my working document that most lines, we ask the department heads to really sharpen their pencil and to really give us a realistic a view of where they can function in their department. And I have to say that every department was on board for that, and every department was aware of what we were trying to do, and essentially we've done that already. We have deducted where we can without bringing it to a position where we just may not have the money to pay for what we need to operate the budget.
Each year, starting in November, we have the opportunity to do transfers between budget lines. And this year, we've made more transfers than in the past because these line items are getting so tight that, could we, reduce things 1%? Most likely, but then we end up having to do the transfers. And then, as Mr. Ritchie had mentioned, that, at year end, there's less left over and less to roll into surplus.
So my idea failed, at least it was an idea.
So, yeah, just like just back of napkin, right, when we look at 2026, if you look at the in-cap expenses, you're looking at $12 million. The first column is salary and wages, so that's employee salaries, which go up every year. That's 5.5 million of that 12 million, almost 50% just there. Then we add into that $1 million for health insurance, which comes down. Remember, we're at 6.5. And we add into that at the bottom, the Social Security, the pension, and those things. That is another almost 2 million. That's 7 million already of the 12 million from just those. And then we look at two lines on here, solid waste and recycling, which is a 5-year contract. That's another 900,000. So forget all the other lines of the budget. We just talk about salaries, health insurance, Social Security. It's $10 million. We run the rest of the town on $2 million.
Not a bad idea, Councilman Brennick, but we've done that for you already.
I didn't mean to anticipate, by the way, that you were.
Oh, sorry.
doing a job.
That's
No.
I actually think that
Yeah.
that strategy, unfortunately, has yielded the problem we're in right now, because we used to use surplus to balance our budget, but we used 60% of each line item, and at the end of the year, we were putting more back in than we were
Correct.
originally starting. And then every year, we were just trying to skimp more and more, but we weren't cutting the services, so we were just allotting less money, and then less was going back. And-
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I said when we started this. And we've gotten to the point now where there's nothing left to cut.
If we end 2026 where we ended 2025, we'll be at 4.4 million in surplus.
Other towns have no surplus.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
Right, and to Councilman
What do
Ritchie's
they do?
point.
When they have zero
Right.
surplus,
Right.
they have to cut people. They have to cut services.
And our auditors have been following it, I know, to your point, Councilman, but in '23, not too long ago, that's when the tide changed, and that has escalated quickly, and so.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep.
There were so many unexpected things that happened here, right? You can put a 5-year plan together for something and things happen, right? COVID happens, inflation happens when we're least expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's prudent to have a long-term plan, but to also know that things can change and pivot very quickly.
Yep.
And then we're left in a position where we also have to pivot
Right.
to keep up, so. But I'm totally in agreement with not cutting services.
Well, I have a question about, I
Yes.
guess Councilman Brennan mentioned cutting garbage pickup to 1 day a week, but I was talking to someone in another town, they have cut it by a third by having a rotating schedule. I don't know if that was ever discussed and if that would even cut the budget. And I know it's not even on, I think that there's still 2 more years.
Right, so when we sit down with our hauler, we can, at that time, talk about what services, the council would feel comfortable engaging a hauler for, and, you can try to save, but you certainly will see a reduction in your service. That's the only way to see a savings.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, because I know I only really do it once a week. I'm a family of 4, but perhaps that would be something that the residents would make a small concession over raising taxes, just a thought.
Thank you.
Careful. They come to your house first.
They can put their extra
The
garbage in
pitchforks
my
come out very
garbage.
quickly.
They'll bring it to your house to go this way.
That's fine, mine doesn't get full.
That did happen to me once in a former town where I worked. They brought the garbage right down to my front door of my office. So people take their garbage collections super seriously, yes.
We talked about that once before, one day, and I think we were really hit hard by the residents. They didn't want it.
Right.
So, but I think to kind of bring this
But it's a thought to talk
to
about.
what we have to do for future, I think, Councilman Ritchie, is trying to tie these things together. I think if, as a council, if we are able to commit to looking at other opportunities, whether it's water, whether it's the next development project, whenever that comes to us with a plan that we can control, I think we need to get ahead of that. We need to start working with our development counselor that we have and put our plans together for what we want to see, so that we don't get a plan that we have to reject a million times. Like we've rejected a million plans, or not a million, I'm over exaggerating, but we rejected a lot of plans because they didn't fit to what we want as a town. So we need to tell people what we want.
And I do believe that 2026 is going to be the year for that. I think that we have to, and we've been able to sort through a lot in the past 6 months, but I think that the council will find that there will be a road to get back on track and to start looking at potential options to help bridge that gap. It's conversations that are happening in the administration office with our professionals, and getting everybody on board, and the council has valuable knowledge to share on all of this, and so I do think that the conversation will continue proactively and positively is our hope for this year.
I think once we pass this budget, either way, or however we do it, I think the next step we should do is, we should look at water. That's the main issue. I think we should look at water. Once Phoenix gives us their reviews and everything, maybe we'd have to look at selling it, maybe not. But I think that's a big item that maybe we should look at first. And we have redevelopment, we could look at that. And we could look at everything else that's going to bring in revenue to the town. I mean, all these things we want to do is going to take a long time. It's not going to be done like tomorrow morning. We're talking about 2-3 years before we're going to see any type of money put back into the town if we do anything. But I think right now we got to start with a budget that's going to be putting us right here so that we could keep on going right here. I mean, what do you think?
I am definitely in support of redevelopment, as long as it's smart redevelopment, like you said, and that it's going to be effective for the town.
Yeah, we got to look at the long term of the whole town, like Mike keeps on saying. That's what we have to do. I mean, we got away with a lot. The town is a great town. It's in good shape, but we don't want to make it bankrupt. We want to make it go further to have everybody enjoy it years to come. Because, we're not all going to be sitting here, and we want to leave this dais in good hands and the public in good hands.
Yeah, I think we have to look at everything that comes up as an opportunity.
Right. Absolutely.
When people change jobs, we have to look at opportunities for different types of services. When we have opportunities for the contract, when the waste hauling comes up, we have to look at opportunities. Can we change the garbage selection? Do we look at other ways to collect garbage? We have to look at everything. Do we look at outsourcing the pool to bring that as a profit center instead of as a cost center? Those are things to look at. So I'm in favor of doing whatever we can to bring in more top-line revenue. I'm a top-line revenue guy. I don't like to cut costs, because I think that means cutting services, but it's tough. This is not an easy situation, I can tell you. And of course, it's my first year as finance chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's all my fault. Blame me. So, yeah, I don't have much else to add, council members, other than that. I just want to make sure that we all continue to march forward. We have to find ways to make this work long term. I know some of you on the council do not want to raise taxes 10% at all. Neither do I. And we cannot, as Councilman Brenning said, cannot do that for 6 consecutive years. I don't think we'll legally be able to do it, and none of us will be sitting up here at that point.
I think what the best thing to do also is, every meeting on the new business, each council person, if they have an idea of how we could bring in more revenue into the town, let the administrator know, and then once we have our new business, we can talk about it at every meeting. So we can keep constant dialogue going, the public can hear it, and everybody will know what's going on. And then also the public could come up with their comments after we talk, and that'll be a way in which we can hear from the public on what their ideas are, because sometimes we have one set of ideas and the public has another set that we probably didn't think of. Like I always said, more eyes looking at something is better than just our eyes.
It's a great point, Mr. Mayor. We're not the smartest people in the town in all cases. People might have a better idea about where we can bring in revenue. Most people, when they come to a council meeting or when they post on social media, it's about something negative. It's about, oh, my street didn't get plowed fast enough, or speeding in town, or whatever service, my garbage didn't get picked up, my recycling didn't get picked up. That's what people come to talk about. Come to bring an idea about what we can do better to bring in more revenue to the town. It might be half-baked, it might be really good. It might be illegal, maybe it is legal. So we'll have to look at all those things when you bring those ideas.
You never know until you ask. That's what I always say. So, and the involvement of our residents, I mean, we are here representing, but we're representing our residents.
Yeah.
So your ideas mean so much to us.
And together we can get the job done.
Absolutely. If we work together, that's what I've always said, instead of fighting about things or just making complaints, trying to come up with solutions is not just the job of the council, it's the job of all the residents who want to be involved. Yeah.
So nobody likes tax increases, but one thing, and I'll take the opportunity to mention again, wherever I can, about the various tax-saving programs through the state for the seniors, and what it is a good number of them qualify based on their income, that their taxes are frozen based on the year that they apply, basically. So in as much as, you're going to get a 10% increase for these seniors that are part of the program, they're going to have to pay it, but ultimately they do get that back through the state program. So, the seniors is one block of people, and I wish it could be for everybody, but with the seniors, it won't be as, hard of a hit. And, they need to come in and see me so we can, do the applications.
Oh, just an idea. I remember someone saying there used to be a concession stand at the pool, and I don't know if there is, and I don't even know if that would be just a drop in the bucket, but just ideas of bringing in revenue, and maybe giving a job to a teenager.
Yep, that's fair. We've looked at that. In the past, there have been concessions in the past. Difficult to fill our concession stand only because our membership is lower than, let's say, other pools or lakes in the area. So I believe the last time we went out, we had nobody come in that, was interested in running the concession stand. Doesn't mean we can't continue to look at it.
Yeah, so I don't, again, I always feel like the bad guy. But great ideas, how do we put them in action? I think that there are at least two reasonable ideas here to help us solve what's probably like a $3 million problem. Right? One of the, and none of them are good, right? So it's what's the best bad idea that we can start tackling? The first good bad idea is redevelopment. We have a lot of underutilized properties in town, and I think that we just need to. Can we form a committee or something just so that someone can bring ideas to council and the public on a regular basis? It would make me feel really good. Even if we deny everything, the fact that we're at least thinking about bringing in tax revenue that's not on the existing homeowners, I think would be huge. And then, how do we push Phoenix to get the results back from this financial analysis? Because if we're going to sell the water, that has to go to referendum. We can't decide to sell the water. So if we don't go very quickly, we're going to miss this year. We're going to be talking about it going to referendum November of 2027. 2027. And then we're 2 years away from that being a potential problem, and then it widens. And then there are obviously other ideas too that could add up to $3 million. But I think if we're going to ask the town something that I have to just say, in my lifetime, I never thought I'd ever be in a place where 10% tax increases. I remember my first year on council, debating a 1% tax increase was it created divisions forever amongst the members of council, and we're now talking about a 10% increase. So as that is unprecedented, I think we need to be unprecedented with our approach to solving the problem as well. So I won't be able to just feel good about people wanting to do things, I think we actually have to have these processes in place and track them regularly, track the progress. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Isn't Phoenix coming to talk to us shortly? Isn't Phoenix coming to talk to us shortly?
No, they did already.
Right. But they're coming back and,
H2M is coming at the next meeting to talk about water quality findings.
When are we getting the financial results of the study? That's dependent on rate study first?
So we've had the initial conversation with them, have to get back on track because anything that they had done in the past is outdated information and data, so
They need what, our capital plan?
they do need a capital plan,
H2M has to give us that.
but they need additional, they need updated information on the operating side and then a capital plan as well. But in order to get the capital plan, the borough would have to engage H2M to present that, and if it's H2M or some other firm to present the
I
capital
gotta tell you,
plan.
that's the most, this conversation on the water is the most frustrating thing, in my opinion. We need this before we can get that. We have to go back to this to get that. Like Councilman Murphy said, I want to put some pressure on somebody to say, how do we move that process? Because we're not getting it on a referendum for 26. We can't at this point. It's not going
They
to
won't.
happen. So we're looking at 27. But if we wait until September, October, we're going to say we can't do it at 27. And the town people needs to be updated on this information. They need to have the information at their hands so they can make an informed decision at the ballot box. So we need to put some pressure on somebody. I don't know who it is. I'm willing to sit on a committee. I know the mayor has talked to people. I know Councilman Ritchie would. We need to push somebody to get this information rolling.
Well, it's all based on your,
People that
yeah.
aren't our own residents too.
Yeah.
So if you want me to put this energy somewhere else, I'd be more than happy to apply it on H2M. Or, do we just find a different consultant? Are we happy with H2M? I mean,
Right.
It's been a very long process without a whole lot of information.
right. Well, when the borough engaged H2M, everyone was very clear that it was a one-year process. That was not lost in the proposal. They needed an entire year to put those numbers together. March is a year. So we're at the one-year mark. They're presenting March 24th. The council also engaged other professionals to look at this process. You've engaged professionals, but they don't have the data that's required to move forward. It doesn't mean that the process is not moving forward. Understand the frustration, but these professionals can only do, the work that our water department cannot do. They're engineers, they're professionals in this field, but the agreement that we signed on to as a borough was a one-year agreement to present all of their findings, and they're right on track with that. So we continue to move forward, but until that was all completed, you can't really move to the next step.
I get that, but from today forward, I'll make one of the audience members very happy. I'm a project plan manager too. In my job, we need dates, and we need to hold people accountable to those dates. And there needs to be a plan with a piece of paper on it that I could see on April 21st, we are due to get a rate study. Or on June 30th is the next presentation to the council. That's what I want for my money that we give.
once the survey's up in March, what do we do?
It's not a survey. They're presenting March 24th, and we've already started the conversation with Phoenix. We know what they need for their evaluation of the sale of the water. And, that process, I believe, could take up to 6 weeks for them to turn it back around to us. So nothing has been stagnant. Conversations have happened. Plans are in place. And, the council has engaged everyone needed to make that decision. But it does require some time and professionals in different areas.
Well, when you talk with them before they come here, or whoever you'll be talking to, like Joe said, you got to tell them we need to have a deadline. You can't just keep on waiting. Because the more we wait, the more we lose.
Yeah, we're at the end with H2M. What they're presenting to you on March 24th is the conclusion of their one-year study of the water system. So at that point, At that point, if you wanted to engage them or another firm to talk about your capital project, then you would have to decide, and we'd have to go out for, most likely an RFP, for another firm to put that together. But in the meantime, Phoenix is already working on the evaluation of whether or not the sale is viable.
Phoenix is already doing that. They don't need our rate study in order to have that.
They need updated information. They already did this before, but the borough did it before H2M did their proposal and completed their work. And what they did is now no longer valid. That data has expired, and we need to provide them with all new data.
Is Phoenix doing the work to untangle what not having a water budget means to our operating budget, or do we need to do that?
I believe that's part of their evaluation. I mean, I think that they understand the connection to it.
They know where all the dead bodies are.
I believe, I believe that's what Brian's proposal is to the borough. It would include all of that, but I will confirm that with Brian.
And you gotta let them know, we're serious about this, and we want answers like yesterday. But I think that's the consensus of everybody.
Understood.
And it doesn't mean we can't make that decision.
Right.
The residents need to make that
That's
decision.
correct.
And what the impact is to the residents
Yes.
at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we do it, if we don't.
Yes.
But it is an option to help us to balance this budget long-term. We only have a few levers to pull, that's one of them.
Right.
And if
Yeah,
it doesn't make
big one.
financial sense, we won't recommend doing it.
That's a big one.
Right, your first question.
We need the information.
Your first question is what can you make on the sale? How does that pay down your debt on the water side? And what are you left with at the end of the day?
That's
And
an
then,
important point, right? So
and then the budget that we're working on today is supported by that operating budget. And so now you create, if hypothetically, although I don't have the numbers, this is not for anybody to do here except for the financial analyst, if they determine that you come out and you're not making money off of this deal, you now have a bigger shortfall in your operating budget that we're discussing today. But we won't know until we ask, and that's why we're
But also
pursuing
we
it.
have to make sure that we still get the service we get from them if we go there.
Well, we're not engaged with anybody,
If we
it's a
do
financial
sell,
analyst,
if we
right,
do
right.
sell,
right.
We know now what we do with our water. They're
Well,
out there immediately.
your referendum is,
Sure.
right, your referendum is to sell, you don't know who will come through on the other side to buy.
and if you pass a referendum to say we're going to offer our water system up for sale, people come back to bid, doesn't mean we have to accept that offer, or at that point, best bid, we have to take it.
I don't think you do. I think you're going to have an opportunity. You have up to 30 or 60 days to accept the bid. But you could always change the terms. You could always go out to rebid. This is why the process takes time, because we don't have the crystal ball. You don't know what those numbers are going to come in at, and you don't know who's going to bid on it.
And whatever number they come back with, X million dollars, the first thing that has to happen, Colleen, is we have to write a check to pay off our debt of water, not our full town debt, whatever debt we have on the water balance sheet. And then that money goes to general fund for us to use as we see fit.
I think some of the companies are realizing that we're thinking about selling, because I've been getting emails from different companies, and I've been forwarding them to Tatiana, and I just write back to them saying, thank you very much for your email. So we have to see what happens.
So there's some demand there from some buyers.
Yeah, they're watching us. Everybody, they're
That's
watching.
good.
What they're doing is, they're watching all the towns. All the towns they're watching.
But to clarify, so we'll get the water report from H2M at the next meeting, and then Phoenix they're the consulting firm that will tell us if it's a good idea, right?
To sell or not,
They're
correct.
going to analyze that. And then-
Two separate functions, but related to each other, because after this one-year study from H2M, that would feed into what your capital project would be for the next 5 years, presumably. Now, we have capital budget for water. It's part of the appropriation request we put in. We already have some indications of what we can do. Water main replacement really being probably the biggest chunk of this and the most costly. So, the water capital is, it's pretty known, and it would play into the study, but Phoenix has to really look at what your rates currently are and where you would wind up if you sold it at the end of the day.
Just to clarify, since we weren't here at the time when all this was going on, so H2M was hired to study, right? And then after, they're gonna make a report of what they recommend.
Right, which they have, right, in that
And then their
meeting.
responsibility is pretty much done. Your own
Correct.
recommendations. And then it's up
Correct.
to the council to decide which of these we want to adopt.
Correct.
And one of the options, if everything is, super high, expensive on the town, is to sell the water system, right? That would
That's not their recommendation.
Not theirs, that
No.
would be Phoenix looking at whether.
Phoenix is looking at the borough's intention to ask, is it a viable solution? And is it something we should be considering?
Really kind of somewhat conjoined, but not.
They're separate,
Yeah.
correct, yep.
And then we agree if you want to do this, it goes on a referendum, and then the public decides yes or no.
Right,
Okay, thank you, just wanted to straighten
Yeah.
that out too, so thank you.
right. There are a lot of moving parts to the water system.
So now where do we stand?
So at the next meeting, which is
24th.
March 24th, we'll have
Introduction.
of budget. I think at this point, we're going to introduce a budget that is going to show the 10% tax increase. We'll have a slide presentation that Kelly has been putting together that we'll have for the public to see on our equipment here. We'll have a presentation from our administrator. We'll go through it, we'll make comments. We'll open for public questions on that at that point.
It'll be a regular council meeting, so yes, there will be a public portion.
Public questions can be asked on that.
Public
portion.
question?
Yep.
Yeah. Not the public to...
Just during public portion, the public will be able to talk about anything they want.
Right.
Right.
So they can
The
ask.
introduction is introduction, and we just introduce.
Yep.
During the public hearing and adoption of the budget, obviously, the public will have
Yep.
two,
So that will be on,
April something.
Second week in April.
Second week of April.
First meeting in April, no, second,
So-
because I have 20 days after.
yep, so.
On the 28th, April 28th.
I encourage you to take this paperwork home with you and do homework and come up with any questions that you have that before the next council meeting, so that we are fully prepared to answer questions and to support a budget here to move us forward, with all of us in agreement that we have to seriously keep timelines on finding other solutions, water redevelopment, et cetera. We have to. We just have to. You look at those numbers, we can't bury our heads in the sand and say it's going to get better. We have to find ways to get better.
And if I may just say, if any of us get any emails from residents, or you see anything on social media about what's taking place, please do not respond. Send everything to Tatiana. Let her respond on our behalf. Because if we start answering the residents, their opportunity to ask us questions is here. To do it on our email systems or our social media is not really the right thing to do. But Tatiana or Kelly will take care of all that for us. Like we always say, if you get something from a resident, send everything to our administrator or clerk, and they will answer on our behalf. Okay? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Andy, second by Courtney. Everybody have a happy St. Patrick's Day.